Tonight, as you all know, we're going to be discussing Stand Your Ground. It's the controversial self-defense law that has gained a lot of attention, mostly out of the state of Florida. But I want you all to know that Stand Your Ground is a law that can be applied anywhere, in any U.S. jurisdiction. And so my goal tonight is to make sure that we educate you all on Stand Your Ground, that you're appropriately educated on it, and that you don't get it from hearsay, or that you don't get it from rumors that you hear other people talking about. We want to make sure that you understand what it is from professionals.
It's a changing body. And to understand the Stand Your Ground law, you really have to understand how we got to Stand Your Ground historically. You know, because there was and it really goes back to the common law. Even this Castle Doctrine that people talk about the Castle Doctrine. That is something that was embedded in the law at common law. And gradually, the duty to retreat became part of that. So it's a humane sort of principle that, you know, you have the right to defend your castle, your home, from intruders. And you have a right to defend your family. That's the Castle Doctrine. You also have an inherent right to self-defense. You have a right to defend yourself. If you're being threatened by somebody, and Alabama law codifies that. For years, I tried cases under the pre-existing self-defense law, which basically said if someone is attempting to physically assault you, you have a right to use reasonable force to defend yourself against imminent physical injury. And the same applied with deadly force. If a person is attacking you with deadly force, it's imminent, not in the future, somebody thinking about doing it, right now, you have a right to respond in a reasonable manner. But the pre-existing law also had a provision that said you have a duty to retreat. If I come up to you on the street and I try to attack you with a weapon, and you can safely retreat, under the pre-existing law, you had an obligation to retreat. Zimmerman would have had an obligation to retreat. He had a gun. He had an obligation to retreat under pre-existing law. But that did evolve, and there are a lot of sociological reasons for it, a lot of reasons you can give, a lot of reasons that are argued for it. But eventually, it comes to mind, I have to say this, that we've always, as a culture, had a disinclination for retreat. I think, you know, we culturally just don't like the idea that if somebody's attacking you, I gotta run. One of the last cases I tried as a criminal defense attorney was a self-defense case where my client shot and killed an unarmed man. But that unarmed man had been threatening him and chasing him all around town and telling him what he was going to do to him and his mama and everybody else. He got tired of it. And this fellow came up to him at a convenience store, threw a beer bottle down to the ground and came after him. He pulled out a .380 and put a bullet through his chest. And my argument to the jury was, how far did he have to run? How far do you expect him to run? How fast did he have to run? And that jury, 11 of them, voted to find him not guilty. One guy wanted to find him guilty of manslaughter. He shot and killed an unarmed man. So we've always culturally, I mean, it's always been a challenge from a prosecution standpoint to successfully prosecute somebody who has killed somebody who is threatening them, even if it's an unarmed person. And the other thing it does, in Alabama does have a version of the Stand Your Ground law. It's in there. You have a right to stand your ground. The other thing it does, and this is a huge problem, legally, it actually makes the person who uses that force immune from prosecution. You cannot be prosecuted. It's the only provision in the law in Alabama. Alabama has no procedural rule that allows you to have a case dismissed before trial. You can dismiss it at the close of the state's case. But to dismiss that case before it ever gets to a jury, you can do that under Stand Your Ground law. And it was done in St. Clair County on a case where a man killed a fellow on his property. That case was thrown out by the judge, never saw a jury. And it was upheld on appeal. So those are two major issues and two major concerns.
You have an elected judge. That judge has I guess they have more of a constituency pull more than just the duty of being a judge. So you have that judge that when they have to make a decision, they kind of start thinking, how is this going to affect me in my next election cycle? And so you have the ability to take something that may not be just. It could be on the plus and negative side. You can take a situation that may not be just and bring enough public awareness to it, to that judge will say, well, if I don't deal with this, if I don't handle this a certain way, it may cost me my judgeship, it may cost me my job in the next election cycle. So you have that political aspect that actually kind of can sway the way that we deal with things, the way that a judge may look at it, whether he'll even accept it as standing ground or not. And so politically, that's kind of your big to-do about it. It's, will I get any kind of political fallout based off of this decision? And if so, how do I handle that? So, you know, you have times where, like in Trayvon's case, you know, the judge wasn't even going to see it. It wasn't, like the attorney said, it wasn't even going to make it to the light of day for a trial. But because of the political heat that was turned on to that judge, it actually saw a trial. You know, and that was actually groundbreaking because according to Stand Your Ground, if Stand Your Ground is accepted, it doesn't even make it to the courtroom. So that we have the ability through politics and involvement to actually force justice from the people. Like Dr. King used to say, the power of public opinion. And if we can make something, if you can make the public aware of something strong enough, you can sway the opinion of the judge, of the jury, of your politicians, of the lawmakers.
In regards to police response to a crime scene, picture this scenario. Screaming woman, 911 call, police arrive at the scene. It's obviously some type of domestic dispute. I want to be able to discuss with everyone the domestic violence side of Stand Your Ground, because I speak especially for a lot of the women in here. Many women have concerns that if they are in an abusive relationship and their life is in danger and they stab or shoot their partner, that they could go to jail for trying to stand their ground. Let's try to hear this story for a minute. 33-year-old Melissa Alexander, she's a woman from Jacksonville, Florida. She was convicted in 2012 of 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for firing warning shots at her estranged husband and his 2 children in a domestic dispute. This is according to her. Now, although no one was injured in the shooting, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the incident. However, she has been granted a new trial and it is expected to take place sometime in July. Now, obviously I know that that's not a case here in Alabama, and it's not a case that you can comment on because that's something that's being dealt with in the state of Florida. But how does a police officer respond to a domestic dispute if a woman has called and said, my husband was trying to kill me, so I shot and I killed him first? How do police officers respond to that?
It's funny you brought that scenario up. That happened in Weaver probably, I'm going to say 6 or 7. I was one of the responding officers. Not the lead. I didn't take over the investigation. We brought investigators out. Domestic violence is a little different as far as stand your ground type stuff. In this kid's situation, you have a victim, the husband, who wasn't killed. He was alive, correct?
Yes.
Alabama domestic laws are that if you can determine the primary aggressor, something has to be done, because again, we can be held civilly liable. If I fail to take action, I leave and say, hey, y'all calm down. You know, I don't want to have to come back out here again tonight. If I leave and that escalates further and the person gets harmed or killed, I can be held civilly liable. If I show up on that case, I'm going to have my victim. She shot at me. And I asked her, she says, yeah, I shot at him. He was chasing me or whatever. I don't know that he was chasing her, but it has been proven. She said, yes, I shot at him. To me, that's going to be my primary aggressor initially. I'm going to take the burden off of me, and I'm going to let the judge decide that later.
I wanted to say that what Marcus said a while ago is true, and it has things that we don't think about every day. How many kept up with all the House bills that have been voted on and everything going on? Well, this right here this started out that way. And you know who pushed us through, voted on it, and then signed it into law? It's your elected officials. And if you don't, and what they do is they react to what people are telling them. And if you look, if you read this law, it's obvious when this came into effect. You know, it's looks to me very obvious that it was run around the town, a lot of carjackings and things like that, because it's specifically mentioned. And people are contacting those representatives and saying, this ain't right, this happened, this happened here in Addison. I think everybody probably knows in the case of carjacking. So they're reacting, they write a law, a bill, and then they push it forward. And if you don't keep up with that and somehow say something about it and make sure that these people know what you were wanting from them, then they may go based off of what a small group is.
We got into an altercation with a 47-year-old man named Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn shot inside the car. He's since been convicted of 3 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of firearms in an occupied vehicle. Unfortunately for the family of Jordan Davis, the murder charge he was mistried on, and according to prosecutor Angela Corey, that case will be retried. Excuse me, that count will be retried at a later date. 2 things that I noticed back when I was a reporter. I noticed that a lot of people were talking about what's called the mind your own business law. It was something that was repeated over and over and over and over again with both the Trayvon Martin and the Jordan Davis case. It said that sometimes there are people who feel the need to butt in and intrude on other people's lives, as they said that George Zimmerman intruded in the space of Trayvon Martin. They say Michael Dunn intruded in the space of Jordan Davis and his friends. They said that many people say that Michael Dunn could have just drove to another gas station, or he could have went to another spot. He did not have to stay there and listen to the music, and nor did he have to start any confrontation with the young men. How do you all feel about the whole mind your business law, and why do you think people say that? Well, what about in the situation in that Florida movie theater where the 2 men got into the altercation because the man said that he was texting, the man said that he was distracted by the man's texting in front of him. The reports say that the man that was killed was texting his 3-year-old daughter's babysitter to make sure that his daughter was okay. In a confrontation like that, you're inside a movie theater, there are plenty of seats. A movie theater is probably as big, if not bigger, than this room that we're in right now. Why could that police officer, that retired police officer who was so disturbed and distracted by the text messaging, did he have the right to move somewhere else in a case, in a situation like that? Because most people probably say, well, he didn't have to start a confrontation with this man. He did not have to get out his gun and shoot him. I believe if you look at the surveillance video of what it was that the victim had thrown at the suspect, it looks like a box of popcorn. And so, why do you think that he felt the need to stand his ground inside of a large space where he had every opportunity? So I want to get some final remarks from you all, and I would like for each of you to respond appropriately. A lot of people feel that the stand your ground law is a life taker, and that even though stand your ground was intended to save a person's life, people are now under the impression that stand your ground is now something that is taking people's lives. It's taking lives more than it's saving. I want to respond to all 4 of you. How can people not only make themselves more aware of stand your ground, but how can more lives be saved and not unnecessarily taken?